Okay, hey everybody. Again, I'm really sorry that I'm not there today. I have pneumonia, so I am home for at least a couple of days. Hopefully, I'll be back on Friday. I know this isn't the best way to start off with reading a play that is a little bit complicated, but we're gonna make the best of it. We haven't read a ton in my other classes, so I'm just gonna get you caught up to where we were in those classes so that we're all at the same place. So, you guys should have already gone through the Ed puzzle over the prologue. The prologue introduced us to the ideas, the sort of main ideas behind the play. So, the fact that we have two families that hate each other, they've hated each other for years and years, and that the children of these two families end up falling in love and taking their own lives. And so, from the beginning, we know that that's how the play is going to end. But we obviously have to find out how all of that happens. Now, when you're reading the play, a few things to note. The play is divided into acts and then into scenes. At the beginning of each scene, it's going to tell you what the setting is, and then it's also going to give you a brief overview of what happens in that scene. So I always like to use those to kind of refresh my memory and to use as pre-reading. So before I read, I look through those to kind of know what to look for. When you read Shakespeare, it's not important to understand every single word that's said. You more so want to understand the overall of what's going on. So, in this part, especially in the very beginning, don't worry about what the characters are saying as much because they're just kind of bragging and talking, and they're not really characters that are going to come back later. So at the beginning, you just kind of want to understand what's happening and not necessarily worry so much about what each individual word means. So at the beginning of Act 1, Scene 1, as the scene opens, two young Capulet servants swagger across the stage, joking and bragging. When they happen to meet servants from the rival house of Montague, a quarrel begins that grows into an ugly street fight. Okay, so right here you can go ahead and answer number 1 on your study guide that asks you the name of the two families. So the families are the Capulets and the Montagues. And at the beginning of the play, we see these Capulet servants, they're swaggering across the stage. So think in your head what it would look like if someone is swaggering across the stage. They're joking around, they're bragging, okay? They're just kind of talking about how tough they are and how they would fight anyone that they come across. I'm going to do my best to just read back and forth. You guys just follow along. When I'm there, we will read out loud, and I know that will be a lot better, but we'll just have to do the best we can given the situation for today. Okay, so we enter Samson and Gregory, servants of the house of Capulet. They're armed with swords and bucklers, which are shields. So remember, this is taking place in the 1300s, and so everyone carries a sword with them pretty much. There's no weapons like guns or anything like that. So it's all swords. Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals. No, for then we should be colliers. I mean, and we be in collar will draw. I, while you live, draw your neck out of collar. I strike quickly being moved. But thou art not quickly moved to strike. A dog of that house of Montague moves me. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest away. A dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. That shows thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall. 'Tis true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore push I will Montague's men from the wall, and thrust his maids to the wall. The quarrel is between our masters and us their men. 'Tis all one. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be cruel with the maids. I will cut off their heads. The heads of the maids? Ay, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads, take it in what sense thou wilt. They must take it in sense that feel it. Me they shall feel while I am able to stand, and 'tis known I am a pretty piece of flesh. 'Tis well thou art not fish. If thou hadst been poor John. Draw thy tool. Here comes two of the house of Montagues. And so again, just basically all that Samson and Gregory are doing here is just talking about how tough they are. Samson in particular mentions that if he sees someone from the House of Montague, he is going to fight them. Okay, so they're just kind of bragging and kind of just talking about how tough they are. And now here come two of the Montagues into the scene. So Samson has just been talking about how tough he is, how he's going to fight any Montague he sees, and now here comes the Montagues. My naked weapon is out. Coral, I will back thee. How? Turn thy back and run? Fear me not. No, Mary, I fear thee. Let us take the law of our sides. Let them begin. I will frown as I pass by and let them take it as they list. Nay, as they dare. I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them if they bear it. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? Is the law of our side if I say I? No. No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. Do you quarrel, sir? Quarrel, sir? No, sir. But if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you. No better? Well, sir. Enter Benvolio, nephew of Montague and first cousin of Romeo. Say better, here comes one of my master's kinsmen. Yes, better, sir. You lie. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy swashing blow. And they fight. Okay, so what happens here is that Samson wants to fight with them, but he says here in line 34, let us take the law of our sides, let them begin. So he's basically saying, I want to fight, but I'm going to get in trouble if I start the fight, so I'm just going to provoke them into fighting, okay? And so what he decides to do is bite his thumb at them. Biting the thumb at someone else, it's literally like biting your thumb. And at that time, it was an insult, a rude gesture. I would compare it to maybe like flipping someone off in our society today. So it's not like the worst thing that you could do, but it's definitely rude. Okay. Um, and so then Abram kind of confronts him and asks, hey, are you biting your thumb at us? And they kind of go back and forth, this little sarcastic interchange. But they finally do start fighting. Okay. Now, on your study guide, you can answer question 2 and question 3. So question 2 asks what the gesture biting your thumb is in Shakespearean times. Okay, so it's a rude gesture, an insult. And then question 3 is asking if Benvolio is a Montague or a Capulet. And he is a Montague. He is a first cousin of Romeo. Now, in this next section, we're going to meet both Benvolio and Tybalt. These are pretty important characters throughout the rest of the play. And in your notes, we talked about characterization, how what characters say, their speech tells us a lot about what kind of person they are. So we want to pay particular attention to the first things that Benvolio and Tybalt say, because they're going to tell us a lot about their characterization throughout the play. So make sure that you pay attention to that as we read through this next part. So we're at the bottom of page 1040. Part fools, he beats down their swords. Put up your swords. You know not what you do. Enter Tybalt, the hot-headed nephew of Lady Capulet and first cousin of Juliet. What, art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death. I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me. What, drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee. Have at thee, coward. They fight. Enter several of both houses who join the fray, then enter the citizens and peace officers with clubs. Clubs, bills, and partisans, strike, beat them down. Down with the Capulets, down with the Montagues. Enter old Capulet and Lady Capulet. What noise is this? Give me my longsword, ho! A crutch, why call you for a sword? My sword, I say. Old Montague has come and flourishes his blade in spite of me. Enter old Montague and Lady Montague. Thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go. Thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe. Okay, so basically here, the fight just gets really big, okay? I mean, this turns into a total brawl. It's not just between a few people. Everyone is coming out. This is like now the whole town is like involved in this huge fight, okay? Let's go back and look at Tybalt and Benvolio. So the first thing Benvolio says is put up your swords. So he's saying stop fighting. And then down here he's saying I'm keeping the peace. Put up your sword or manage it to part these men with me. So when we think about Benvolio, we want to think about someone who is peaceful. Okay. He's a peacekeeper. Maybe you could think of him as calm or rational, something along those lines. On the back of your green questions, number 19 asks you to list what we know about these characters. So you will want to put this down there. I believe that Benvolio is 19A and Tybalt is 19B. So Benvolio is a Montague. He's Romeo's cousin. Okay, he is a peacekeeper and he is calm. Those are things that I would put down under 19A. Okay. Then when we look at Tybalt, this would be 19B. So Tybalt comes in and he sees that Benvolio's sword is out, and he says, "What art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death." Okay, so here we can see he's using very like aggressive words. And then again, when Benvolio says, "Hey, I'm just trying to stop the fight," he says, "You're talking about peace, but your sword is out." And he says, "I hate the word peace, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee." So Tybalt is kind of a hothead. Okay, he's kind of a hateful character, violent, aggressive. Okay, any of those words could work to describe him. So make sure that you put down for 19B some character traits of Tybalt that we can tell based on those first lines that he speaks. He is Juliet's cousin. Sorry, I'm having a hard time writing on this trackpad, but he is a Capulet. He is Juliet's cousin. Okay. All right. So the fight has continued on to the point that now the prince is going to come out. So the prince, he is the ruler of the town. So even though both of these families are wealthy, he is still the prince. He's the one who's in charge. Okay. Enter Prince Escalus with attendants. At first, no one hears him. Rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel, will they not hear? What ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage with purple fountains issuing from your veins. On pain of torture, from those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground, and hear the sentence of your moved prince. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word, by thee, old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens, cast by their grave beseeming ornaments, to wield old partisans, in hands as old, cankered with peace, to part your cankered hate. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. For this time all the rest depart away. You, Capulet, shall go along with me, and Montague, come you this afternoon. Excuse me. Excuse me. Um, Come this afternoon to know our farther pleasure in this case, to old Freetown, our common judgment place. Once more, on pain of death, all men depart. And then everyone leaves except for Montague, Lady Montague, and Benvolio. And that's where we're going to stop. So let's talk about this speech here. First, we have some figurative language. In line 80, he says, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground. Mistempered means angry. So if we're describing weapons as being angry, what type of figurative language is that? It's personification. Okay, hopefully that's what you thought of. And in this speech, he's basically just talking about how often the Capulets and Montagues have been fighting. So he mentions here in line 82 that there have been 3 civil brawls, and he says they've been bred of an airy word. So an airy word means it's light, it's offhand, it doesn't even matter. Okay, so they're just fighting about nothing, and it's disturbing his whole town, right? It's not just the little skirmishes or little fights that they're getting in, but this is now affecting everyone in the town. He talks about how the old citizens are being disturbed. So he wants this to stop. And so he issues an ultimatum here, or he issues a decree or a law in line 89 and 90. So this is question 4 on your green paper. So it says, if ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. Okay, so what he's saying here is if you fight again in our streets, then I will put you to death. Okay, so he's tired of them fighting. He's going to put to death whoever the next person is who fights. So when we see that, that should kind of send up some alarm bells in our heads that there's probably going to be more fights. This is foreshadowing, okay? The author does not just include things randomly, so he has probably included this to tell us that this is something that is going to happen later. This is something that will be important later on, okay? All right, so that's where we're going to stop for today. So you should have questions 1 through 4 on your green Act 1 questions completed, and you should have your prologue Edpuzzle finished, okay? Like I mentioned, I will hope to be back on Friday, and if you have any questions, please make sure that you email me, and I will get back to you as